This Bobcat skid steer has been working hard in the mud to get the job done, which usually isn't a problem. Except that I own it and there's no way it's getting parked looking like this. Today I'll be blasting piles and piles of mud off Bobby here, and we'll show you what can happen if you have a mental lapse when operating heavy equipment. So stay tuned. Alright guys, well as you can see, Bobby is absolutely filthy, but just before I get started with the pressure washer, I wanted to show you some of the work he's been up to this past summer. From hauling crusher dust, topsoil and mulch, to digging holes all around the yard, leveling topsoil, and much more. He's been a busy boy this summer. As for why he's so muddy right now though, well, I'll have more on that later in the video, but just know I wasn't happy about it. Okay, now as I start to spray off the wheels here that are absolutely caked with mud, which then picked up a bunch of reclaim as I drove into the studio, it's pretty clear that this isn't going to be an easy job today. Here's what it looks like in real time as I work on blasting all the mud and rocks out of the grooves in the tires. Yeah, not exactly fun because it's proving to be incredibly hard not to get splashed in the face while doing this. And in case you guys were wondering, yes, my camera is also getting soaked because the splashback is going everywhere, including the walls, cabinets, and even onto the TV. Which happens to be exactly why I designed the studio using materials that can handle getting a little bit wet. Well, obviously not the TV, so I got that wiped off pretty quick. But as for everything else, it's definitely not the first time that mud has flown a little farther than I would have wanted, but a quick wipe down is all that's really necessary. Now as I continue blasting all the mud off of Bobby here, you might have been watching this and wondering what happens to all the mud that's ending up on the floor. Well, Bobby is sitting directly over top my 2-compartment drain pit, which is a 3 foot wide by 5 foot long and 3 foot deep precast concrete pit, and as you can imagine, it holds a ton of mud. But as for all the dirty water, well, it ends up in a 1,500 gallon holding tank outside the shop. I get that pumped out every 6 weeks or so, and as for the pit in here, it needs to be done about every 10 to 12 months, though I'm guessing after today it's going to be full. Now if you guys want to see a video of that though, let me know down in the comments and I'd be happy to film it. Okay, as I work on spraying off the back here, I wanted to let you guys know that the wait is over. There is a new Yard Geek video live right now over on my other channel, The Yard Geek, so make sure you check it out right after this one. After truckloads of dirt was delivered, I got to work leveling it all in the back and started work on a big feature in the front yard by the shop. This episode is absolutely jam-packed with progress and I can't wait for you guys to see it. Now if you haven't checked out the channel yet, then please do me a favor and head over there once Bobby's all cleaned up. I promise you won't regret it. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe because there's piles of content coming your way. Alright, well as I continue what feels like a never-ending effort to get all the mud off the wheels here, I figured I'd explain how this ended up happening. The evening before I filmed this, I was moving some dirt around in the backyard and knew there was rain coming, but I really wanted to get the job I was working on done. But of course, Mother Nature had other plans because it went from a light drizzle to a torrential downpour in what seemed like a matter of seconds. I of course just bailed and left Bobby out in the rain, but I knew that no matter if I left him there until the ground was dry or brought him into the studio the next morning like I did, he was going to be filthy. Of course, in hindsight, had I left him to dry, he might not have been quite as muddy, but I just couldn't do it. It pains me to ever leave any of my things outside overnight, whether that be my truck or Bobby here, so I decided to bite the bullet and drive across the reclaim while the mud on the tires was still soft, though I am slightly regretting that decision right now. Okay, just before I spray out the bucket here, I'm going to curl the bucket out as much as I can so that I can get a bit of a slope going on, so the water doesn't just pool in the back of the bucket on me, causing splashback, because I've already been soaked enough for one day. Alright, now that I've got the bucket up in the air and tipped downwards, I can see what I'm dealing with, and of course it's covered in a solid layer of thick mud, though thankfully there isn't any reclaimed asphalt in it, so that's going to make spraying it all off a little easier. Okay, with the underside of the bucket clean now, I can hop back in Bobby and unattach it so that I can spray off the backside of it. But if any of you out there have ever wondered how a Bobcat works or how the attachment system works, well, I've cleaned Bobby a few times on the channel now and showed in detail how to operate it and change attachments, so feel free to check out the other videos for that. Now when I backed Bobby up earlier, I made sure to expose the underside of the tires that I couldn't access before, so I can make sure that I get every little bit of mud out of these grooves here, which just takes a really long time as the mud was especially sticky, so I had to really pay attention to make sure I sprayed from different angles to get it all off. Okay, well since I didn't do this the last time I cleaned Bobby in the spring, I figured it was probably time to lift the cab and spray out underneath. So after getting jack stands placed at the back, there's just 2 bolts inside the cab that need to be removed, and then the whole thing just lifts up and locks into place. It's super quick and easy to do this, and it makes getting all the dirt that's accumulated under here sprayed out very easy. Of course, as I do this, I'm making sure to not get too close because I don't want to force water somewhere it's not supposed to go. Now since the cab is up, it also gives me really good access to the footwells, which are of course full of dirt, so I'll get the 2 drain plugs removed and then basically just rinse everything out and let it drain through. Though if you notice, there were a few bits of glass down there. Well, that was the result of a major brain fart. Here's what happened. One day earlier in the summer, I was drilling a couple of holes with the auger. Seems pretty straightforward, except for one major problem. I forgot to lock in the auger attachment before I lifted it up, and well, I'm sure you can figure out the rest. Sure looks like I got away with one though, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what I was thinking as I pretty much pondered my entire existence at this point. I couldn't comprehend how I had made such a simple but huge mistake. and somehow got away with it. Only I really didn't, because the very next morning I was back digging holes again, and I managed to do the exact same thing. Only this time, when the plate fell against Bobby, the door glass shattered. I will admit though, I was burning the candle at both ends when this happened, and this was a bit of a wake-up call to slow down a bit. Thankfully, the great people at the local Bobcat dealership were able to get new glass put on my door in just a couple of hours, though it did set me back about $1,000. Safe to say I've learned my lesson, and I always make sure to lock in attachments now. One last thing to take care of while I've got the cab up, and these are easily accessible, is to change out the cabin air filters, since Bobby works in a pretty dusty environment most of the time, and as you can see, they're pretty dirty and definitely needing to be changed. Okay, with the cab bolted back down, it's time to clean these big wheels, so I'll get some of my wheel and tire cleaner sprayed on here, and then using my tire brush and wheel brush, I'll simply agitate and rinse them clean. Now, as I start on the hand wash here, I just wanted to point out that the whole exterior detail process is pretty much the same as it is on other vehicles, but one thing I'm watching out for with the Bobcat is all the grease that spills out of the pivot and hinge points. The pressure washer can only get so much of it, so I'm making sure to get the rest with my wash mitt. Of course, a Bobcat detail wouldn't be complete without cleaning the engine bay as well, since it's pretty much always filthy. So I'll start by getting some degreaser sprayed on, then I'll agitate with a variety of brushes, rinse it off, and then dry everything, leaving it all looking brand new and guaranteed cleaner than every other skid steer in existence. Now, as I work on vacuuming up all the dust that's accumulated in here, I figured I'd give you a bit of background on Bobby here. So as you may know, I bought this 2022 Bobcat S590 a couple of years ago now, and it's quite simply the best purchase I've ever made in my life. Living on an acreage means it's pretty much a necessity to have heavy equipment, because there's just no conceivable way to develop acres of land without it. Bobby has put in hundreds of hours out in the yard, and yes, it is absolutely as fun to operate as you think it would be. Even though every time I get inside it means that I'm working, it really doesn't feel like work because I'm just like a kid having fun playing with a big toy. Switching over to steaming now, and after cleaning Bobby a few times now, I've pretty well got the proper process figured out for inside the cab. Start with the footwells first, and then once those are clean, all it really takes is a quick vacuum and then a little bit of steam to blast any dust out of the crevices. It's actually incredibly challenging to try to maneuver inside here because it's so small, and I'm not. So some things need to be done from outside the cab, and some I have to do while I sit in there. But really all I'm doing here is just blasting whatever dirt I see and then wiping things down with a microfiber towel. Moving back outside now, and of course I'm going to protect the paint here with some of my graphene spray coating, which just like the ceramic version is super easy to apply. Just spray some into a towel, wipe it onto a section, wait a minute or two for it to flash, and then just wipe it off. You can find this and all my other Detail Geek products over at detailgeekautocare.com, where worldwide shipping is available, and we also have a wholesale program for anyone who might run a detailing business and wants to buy in bulk and save some money doing so. Okay guys, last step here is to get all 4 tires looking sharp with some of my tire dressing, and while you might think this is overkill, I happen to like walking through my shop and seeing Bobby sitting there looking all glammed up.
All right, guys, well, believe it or not, but it took 8 hours to get Bobby here all cleaned up, with a good chunk of that time being spent on spraying all that mud off. Hopefully going forward, I'll be able to keep it clean, but I guess if I can't, we'll just do this again. So if you guys enjoyed this one, make sure you smash the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy the guitar outro, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.